I've always had this interest in history ever since I was a little kid. Collected arrowheads when I was a kid and roamed the cornfields and the beaches looking for points. And my name is Robert Griffing. I've been painting the Eastern Woodland Indian for, ever since the mid-'80s, I guess. I love what I do, and it's been very rewarding. Just a great thing. Linesville, which was my old hometown. Town is of course where I grew up, and it was a big influence on what I'm doing today. There's no doubt about that. Linesville it's a small town community. It had a lot of small town activities that everybody was involved with, you know. And I'm a small town guy, I really am. I grew up there. I owe a lot to Linesville, I really do. Because without that background, I doubt very much if I'd be doing what I'm doing today. I mean, that's where I met my wife, and it's been a big part of my life ever since. You know? And so that's where the interest developed. I had a wonderful teacher, and she spurred my interest in Native American history and also the local history that she was very familiar with. Her name was Sarah Egan. She's a marvelous teacher. She's one of the main reasons why I got into, the Native American culture. I started buying books, every book I could get my hands on. And so as you can see, I've got a pretty good sized library, and a lot of it goes back, clear back to 1953 when I first started doing this. As time goes on, you start accumulating more and more books and more reference material. Some of these books you buy just because it has one thing in it that you need to do a painting. And that's what's kind of neat about it. I don't imagine I've ever read every one of these books, but they do have a lot of good information in them. Books are a big part of it, big part of the research, and big part of the paintings. I mean, you couldn't do without them. What I love to do is read the old journals that were written by a lot of the early frontier people. They had a lot of good stories to tell. We do have a pretty good source to work from. The artifacts that you see here are mostly reproductions. These are things that different craftsmen have made for me. There's a quill work. This is an otter skin that's been decorated and quilled in the back. This was made by the fellow that helps me do my paintings, Michael Gelbin. Almost anything that was manufactured in the 18th century can be made today. Even the types of cloth that is used in a lot of the clothing and shirts and what have you. And people do wonderful work out there. I mean, making incredible reproductions. A fellow that helps me up in Salamanca when we do our shoots up there with the Native Americans. He's got a really nice collection of material that he has made himself. So between the two of us, we can pretty much outfit a whole village. Well, no, maybe not that many, but to make it realistic, make it look good, you have to use models. And everything that's on this image here that you see is all models, all taken from photography. It's like a big puzzle. You've got bits and pieces of things, and you just put it all together to make a composition and a scene, which is what this is. Every one of these things is a separate element. And some of it was shot in the past. Some of it was shot years ago. And you go back through your file, back through your old slides, find the right pose, the right lighting, stick it in the slide machine here, and it comes up on the computer. Well, back in the old days, it was slides. We took a lot of slides, and I've got an extensive slide collection of Native Americans in different poses and artifacts and what have you. Of course, I'm tied in with the Seneca very closely. They supply most of my models up there. I go up to Salamanca once a year, and that's on the Allegheny Reservation. And I've got several good friends up there. They've been good friends for years now. I consider them very close. Since it's happened, it's just been great. I mean, I can't say enough about them. As time goes on, more and more information becomes available. A lot of the information is now on the internet. You don't have to search through hundreds of books to find a little piece of information. More people are doing the research, and it's just fascinating to see what they discover. I mean, new things are being discovered every day about this time period, 18th century, early 19th century. There's a lot of subject matter in, of course, the French and Indian War period, and even afterwards, that people think would make, oh, this would be a great story, a great thing to paint. That's the tough part about this whole thing. So you have to make things aesthetically pleasing, plus tell the story. So that's what it is. It's telling a story, and you want to do it as accurately as possible. Back in 1764, there was an English officer who was in the 17th Regiment of Foot, and he was traveling in the Ohio country, and he came across a warrior on this beautiful white horse, and he questioned where he was able to obtain that horse, because a white horse on the frontier, especially within the Native American community, was just almost unheard of and almost impossible. So either the warrior told him or someone else told him that the horse was one of General Braddock's horse taken at the Battle of the Monongahela. So we don't know whether Braddock had a white horse or not. I don't know as much written about whether or not he had a white horse. But chances are he had one, and it just wasn't documented. My theory is that he definitely did not ride it into battle. He had 4 horses shot out from under him, and I think he held this white horse in reserve to be ridden into Fort Duquesne on his victory march after he was able to take Fort Duquesne. And he had, in his mind, there was no doubt that he was going to be able to take Fort Duquesne. So I think that story could be true. We're relying on the research that's being done today, the research that was done years ago. Now, some of it, even some of the historians that have researched material, they might be off. We don't know. All we know is what's out there and what's written down. And you have to look at your source and make sure that it's a viable source. You have to be careful about the whole thing because, like I say, there's people out there watching. Here with this period, with the 1700s, you've got a lot of trade going on with the white settlers in the colonies. And so you've got a lot of color now being added to their culture. Reds and blues and greens and yellows. It's all now becomes a very colorful period. It was just a time period to do. So that came along with wanting to do paint Native Americans, especially Eastern. It's been just a lifelong interest. I had always wanted to do the Eastern Woodland Indian, but I didn't know if anybody else would have any interest in it. It was an interesting deal because I left my job in advertising probably around 92 and pursued this job full time. And I had a show at my alma mater down in Pittsburgh, the Art Institute of Pittsburgh, and this was the first time I exposed the work to the public. And I think I had about 14 paintings there. Half of them were Western paintings, half of them were Eastern woodland paintings. We sold out during that show, and my boss was there at the time. He came to the show, and he said, well, he said, how much time are you going to give me? And I said, well, how about 2 months? And he said, fine. So that was the end of my advertising career after those 2 months. And I came into this full time. It's if someone would have told me back when I was 16 years old that this is what's going to happen here, you know, I said, no way. It would be so far beyond anything in my imagination. Who knew it was going to come to all of this, you know? It's like, you know, when I retired from advertising, I thought, well, this is a good way to spend my retirement years, you know. Just doing a little painting. That'd be more of a fun thing than anything else, you know. I never dreamed it would develop into what it's developed into.